3d6 down the line. Okay, episode 54 in the books. B team.
B team.
All right.
I know we said that we got a lot done. It didn't feel like we got a lot done.
Yeah, you did. You really did, actually, when considering, like, you know, the first half was like a lot of like planning and talk, but you actually you pushed it forward in the second half, which was great.
I don't know.
But I mean, this, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm involved and this is just the way my brain works. Like I always want to try to like plan as many steps as I can. I mean, I obviously, right, like there are different types of gamers, right? And for me, I'm always about the plan, right? Like I know I can't know everything, but I get my biggest jolly, you know, if Ted's mapping and inventory and tracking that stuff, mine is thinking about plans. Like, what about this? What about this one? What about this one?
Well, I felt bad because you guys, you had a really good plan worked up. Like you had very clear like steps that you were going to take. And, but you know, it is like, it's my job to throw wrenches in the
plan,
works,
right?
Of course. Yes. No. And I share that with you, Matt, as well. Right. Like, I enjoy it a lot. It's tough because the stakes, you know, as opposed to like being in the midst of a delve, right. And like waffling at a door, whether we should open it or not. Right. Where like the scope of what's going on and the long-term repercussions of that decision are fairly small. I mean, death being an obvious one, but when we're talking about like factional relationships with things that have been existential to the entire campaign, not thinking about it a lot before acting is hazardous. It's super fucking hazardous. And like any complication in that totally changes the criteria, which is why, I mean, like speaking for myself a lot, I wanted to talk about it a lot this session, right? Because it's like, this isn't opening a door anymore. This is like, do we get killed by both Kronos and the goblins? Do we like, you know, I mean, like it's a very big decision in a way that is bigger than 90% of the decisions we make in the campaign. Right. And so I don't think it's to be taken lightly, but it also is like strange to feel like you're just like, you know, debating and not acting when you're like playing the game.
Well, the scale of the stupidity is
right?
Like you can like open the door or not, like, okay, you know, maybe it was dumb, maybe it's not. But this, you know, the margin of error here is so huge.
No doubt.
The chance to make a stupendously, horrifically wrong choice is enormous.
Very true. It was worth talking about because the ramifications are potentially very, very far-reaching. Yeah.
If it were to go sour with both, hopefully it wouldn't, right? We lose our primary entrance to Arden. We lose the broken head. We lose the stash. We lose the entrance at the stash, right? Like it is such a profound, like gameplay changing situation as to like, if that goes wrong in all directions, how are we even playing at that point, right? Like, and that's why we have to discuss it on those terms. Like, I think it's really, really difficult. So I totally get it.
I like formulating a plan too, but when it comes down to it, it's a made up scenario that's made up in John's head, and we have to have some trust that a bunch of people like us that have imperfect knowledge we could absolutely screw ourselves, no doubt about it. And I believe in the ramifications, but I also kind of feel like there's only so much discussion that you can actually have that's useful before you guys just we all start talking in circles, right? And literally like you get on a loop and it's like a hamster wheel. It's like, but if this happens, then this happens and this happens. And I'm just like, man, at some point we just got to pull the trigger. And I'm just like, I'm sorry that I'm the impatient one. I feel bad about that. And if I get us all killed and we lose the head and we lose everything else, and I will totally own that. You guys can pillory me, like whatever. No.
Good word.
I really do think that we're all very much on the same page. It's little differences that I think, you know, could possibly branch out into big ones, but I don't think that it's that big of a difference where we are. Right. It's just like figuring out, like, I think the biggest possible kind of divergent point here is like what David was bringing up is what do we want to significantly change our relationship with the broken head? Right. Like, do we want to erase that or not?
That's what it seems like the most important to me. Right. I think it also ties into the quest for the safe haven, right? So if you want to divorce yourself or sabotage your relationship with the broken head in any sort of way, then you're basically putting all your eggs in we will find some place in Arden Vul, which is totally legitimate because as we've talked about numerous times and numerous detoxes, that is a worthwhile, very valuable goal to have. But the question, of course, is whether or not you want to divorce yourself from the broken head before or after you've established that safe haven in Arden Vul. It's risky to do it before you.
I'll let David go, and then I have things to say.
Well, I think there are a couple things at play here, right? Which is that, like, to Mike's point, we want to have momentum. And it is possible for us to get into a spiral, right, with decision making. But what's interesting, like why I got frustrated, for instance, is what I was trying to provoke, and in my perspective, mine alone, right, from us was a consequential decision rather than a pushing it forward. And my concern is on almost every aspect of what we're discussing, whether it be stashing or not going to engage with Estella, or seeing who would be at the gladiator school when we got there, or not offering something larger to the goblins, right? Like all of these things were hedging in my mind that were not decisions. So then when we get impatient with not acting, right, which is rational, I'm saying, well, we haven't made a decision, so how can we act? To act without a decision is not action. It's to just fumble forward and then receive the consequence, which is almost certainly negative in all directions. So what I'm provoking is like, let's decide what we want, which is why when John is both telegraphing the dragon situation and reiterating it time after time after time after time in this conversation, he's saying, what do you want to do about that? And when we are ignoring John asking that question, and instead proffering, well, we're going to do everything, John. We're going to try a little bit of it all. And he's like, well, there's not time for that. Well, we're going to try it, but there's not time. That is the waffling, right? That's us avoiding the question. And that's what I think is the actual stalling. It's not the debating the perfect outcome. It's the stalling on commitment that I think is a big problem here.
Just practically, I think at least in my mind, maybe you guys are considering other factors, but to me, it came down to, you had two choices. Did you want to deal immediately with the squad, or do you want to deal long-term with the full cohort, right? That's kind of what it came, at least in my mind, that's sort of the way, like you couldn't do both. Reasonably.
Well, and this is the thing, and we've already said that.
Every time we agreed every time you had to go deal with the squad, then it became a conversation about any interaction with Estelle at this point is an immediately fatal terminal ending for whatever is going on at the Broken Head. Now, personally, I think that an innkeeper and his wife that are going to rob you of your stuff and side with your enemies is a non-starter for me. So outside of actual combat with Estelle and Kronos, I mean, there's never going to be trust there again, right? There's never going to be like fixing that relationship, because they've shown themselves that they will absolutely fuck us over if it's in their best interest.
So why are we protecting them?
But I'll tell you, there's one thing. I'm sorry to cut you off, Mike. Did you want to go ahead?
Good. I'm good.
There's one thing that we can't overlook in that the Broken Head provides, it's a safe haven for now, for whatever, but that also directly mollifies the dragon, right? There's a reason why the dragon hasn't been swooping down and eating us. It's seen us. We've been out. We've seen it flying around. We've been out traveling around. It's satiated. It's mollified by the actions of Estelle and the Broken Head. There is an alliance there. They've set something up.
And this ties into what I was talking about, where if you can make a decision to sort of break away and sabotage Estelle and Kronos if you don't like them and don't trust them anymore. But there are larger ramifications from doing that than just your own. It disrupts the entire economy of Arden Vul. Mm-hmm. Far-reaching consequences, because you're basically removing this single safe haven that is abuts the city, right?
I agree, but this is what I was getting at, because we're trying to intercede with what we now assume is an alliance with Codswallop in a situation which we can't predict for, but most likely will end in open combat. I don't think it's very reasonable to say we're going to go slink through the fields with 20 goblins, engage, when the goblins have been fighting the Wine Dark this whole time and somehow have like an armistice in the field. What is most likely going to happen, and this is not me searching for a perfect outcome, but what most likely is going to happen is conflict, which means conflict has already been instigated with Kronos and Estelle, which means if we don't want to jeopardize relationships with Kronos and Estelle, we give up on the stash. If we do not want to give up on the stash, we should engage with Kronos and Estelle in a sure-footed way, which means interceding with her in the dragon or any of these other things. I agree completely that the dragon is mollified by them, but that is a decision we make to move forward rather than stall, and then we figure out how to mollify the dragon with a new alliance, right? But we have to commit to that trajectory. We can't assume that we can have all of these things at the same time. That's the stalling, right? Waiting to see is the stalling, and we have all of the information pretty clearly already established in these relationships for the faction. So we have to
really didn't get any of that from the session, David. Never once did I get the impression that you wanted to go and engage with Estelle and Kronos. And so here I am going, okay, so David is leaning against. I literally thought you meant the opposite, like leaning against any kind of like altercation with them because it would be so damaging, right? So here I am thinking going, okay, so my plan still is to avoid conflict with everybody. And I think we can do that if we show up at the stash and in a perfect scenario, Codswallop's there with one or two guys, right? And we bully him out of there, and then we hide the shit, and then the Wine Dark cohort shows up, and they're like, where's our money? And either Codswallop's gone because he knows he can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is how it's playing out in my head. And then at that point, Estelle and Kronos have no more skin in the game because they're not getting paid by anybody except us. So then we go back to being hotel friendly with them. Right,
dude. What I've reiterated every step that we've had this conversation, which is why I'm unsure why this isn't coming across, is we are, as you said, in a perfect scenario, arriving before the Wine Dark cohort without a major force there that it can identify us, and in all likelihood, we will arrive with a force that can identify us. So we are hedging on the idea because Codswallop's there, and he's probably not there alone. Now, I could be wrong, but we know the Wine Dark's going in the morning, so we have a tight time frame in which you're engaging with them. Yep. And the only escape, if they're there, is going into the dungeon, like you said. But even that is a very hazardous interaction. And therefore, right, like we are assuming a lot in terms of our safety and our anonymity. And we are saying, well, once we get that information, having already negotiated with the goblins, having already ignored the Estelle urgency, and having already decided not to have any direct confrontation at the inn itself, or sabotage at the inn itself, that we will be 2 level 1s and a couple level 4s to 6s, right? With a few goblins in a field, far from any safety, surrounded by 50 mercenaries that are approaching us. Right. And that to me is a no-win scenario, regardless of the facts, right, of the Gladiator School, unless we're rabbiting down and not returning to the Broken Head anyway, because we're not going to come back out at that point. We're going back into Arden. We're fleeing into Arden, and now Team B is in a dungeon, not at the Broken Head. And we are not going back to the Broken Head anytime soon, if that's the case, because now the Wine Dark and all of them are going back to the Broken Head. When are we and also you're saying we can't repair the relationship with them to begin with. I don't trust them. So why are we saying that we will go back and try to repair the relationship? These are two opposite sentiments.
I think we can trust them to be like, we're going to rent a room tonight, and that's it.
They're businessmen.
You know what I'm saying? Also, they need help with the goblins. We're the only ones that can do that. And now we know that that's true, right? I mean, he said anyone with a little pin can get access. I'm sure we could figure something out to start getting the money flowing.
He also said he would headhunt us and kill us if we betrayed them.
Exactly. But here's the other thing.
There's no plans to do that.
There's no plans to do that. Like my main thing, man, is we have a whole night. Like, we're leaving at dusk. It's not like it's 3 days journey to the Gladiator School. I feel very confident that especially with the goblins with their night vision, we can get to the Gladiator School, deal with what we got to deal with there, and leave before the Wine Dark cohort even heads out the door. And that's kind of the time frame that it has to happen in. Because if we're sitting there and it's like 9 o'clock in the morning and we're still at the Gladiator School, we're screwed. Absolutely, we're screwed.
Yeah. And
we have to get in. We have to do our thing, and then we have to leave under the cover of darkness. And then, for all the Wine Dark cohort knows, they're going to suspect us. But if there's no up for them, there's no up for them. They're not going to take it upon themselves to go figure out where this money is if it's not right there. And they're not going to go start a tunnel war with the goblins. They won't even go in the dungeon. So you can't get mercenaries to go into the dungeon. So frankly, if we do have to go into, like, send the goblins home, and then we have to go back through Gerlad's tunnels for a couple of days or whatever, the Wine-Dark cohort's not following us in there. You can't.
Guys, and
get them to do that. No, go ahead.
Yeah, and we have, like, here's the thing. Like, for me, where it boils down, right? These are contracts and business relationships. These are not alliances. Right, especially when dealing with Estelle and Kronos and Codswallop. This is a business deal. He promised them a certain amount of money if they do such and such. Same thing with the Wine-Darks. There is a contract, and the Wine-Darks, at least from what we can tell, are far more honorable in what they will say and do than Estelle and Kronos are. Right, we can count on Estelle and Kronos. They're going to take whatever downhill road they get to get the most money that they can. Right. So if that's us, if that's those guys, they don't care. Right. They don't care as long as they are profitable, and as long as they can keep the flow going. Right. Like, that's their thing. Adventurers going into Arden through their broken head, that's their business. Right. And so they want that to keep going. They don't want things screwed up with the dragon. They don't want a war. They hated the trouble with the goblins. They hate the setup right now. So, if we go through and our plan, I disagree that our vision isn't clear, because our plan is to go there, get the stash if we can. If we can't, if it's not worth our lives, then we only screw this and leave, right? But if we can get that stash, then we can decide in the moment there if we want to go through the underground tunnels, because we know the tunnels to take to get right back to the broken head, where the Wine-Darks, as Mike was saying, they don't go in the dungeon. So we know we have the tunnel way that we can go up to the broken head if we want to, or if we want to hide the stuff, or whatever we want to do. But this is our opportunity to disrupt that business, and we can decide in the moment if it's worth our lives, if it's worth a big battle or not. Like, if we can go work quickly and get there before this force can even get there, we can get in there and then either go overland or underground back to safety. And then at that point, the Wine-Dark contract is over, because the thing that Codswallop promised them isn't there, and he can't deliver, and so the contract is over.
Like 10 dudes that are there, but I thought Kronos said that they were firing on them anyway or something.
If we arrive right ahead of the goblins and we engage with Codswallop alone, we kill him. Let's say, right, we leave his corpse there, we take the money, we leave. They won't necessarily know it was us, right? We get away scot-free. It's the best possible scenario for us.
Nor would they really care.
Nor would they necessarily care, right? That's the best possible scenario. I agree. That's awesome. If we arrive and Codswallop has a retinue with him, right, and Codswallop is already trying to betray us, we are bartering for him not to kill us at that point, because we are an incredibly weak foursome as a party. Incredibly weak against whatever he has, if it's a group. Just because I'm a level, I can't do shit, right? Mike can't do shit. Yeah. It's more an Avaricios who haven't rested and have no spells against Codswallop and whoever else. This is the key here.
Not even more.
We cannot
even more.
It's not even more. It's 3 level ones in Avaricios.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's Avaricios soloing without spells against Codswallop and whoever may or may not be there. The only way that we can confront him at all then is the goblins, which means the goblins are with us and seen with us, with them. If we succeed in that combat, we kill them. But it is loud and ugly and most likely seen in some way. Can't know for certain, but most likely. If we fail, or if anyone flees, we are affiliated now with the goblins, who have been in a hot war, both with the Wine-Dark and Kronos and Estelle, for weeks for a situation that we caused. And now we are both complicated our relationship with the Broken Head and Kronos and Estelle, openly affiliated with the goblins, who are seen as the bad guys here to them. Hence, we can't just go back to the Broken Head. And we've complicated a relationship with the goblins, who have now fought, if they will fight for us and not just flee and say, fuck you guys, we didn't agree to this, and abandon us to die, right? You go back and say, well, we were going to get weapons, to secure weapons, and there was a bunch of fucking mercenaries there, right? Like, and we almost died, and like, that's not what we signed up for. We have now created a negative relationship with 2 factions based on the hope that we arrive and Codswallop is by himself. This is what I'm getting at when I'm saying we are operating on hope and not making a decision. That's what I mean. It's not a certainty. You know what I mean?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's it. No, that's it. That's it.
See, I disagree in the in the supposition that there's this war, there's this ongoing war. Like, we have already told them that we know the goblins. We can talk to them on your behalf. We can arrange a peace here. If we get into any kind of fight there, which again, like, we shouldn't, right? And we're going to make every effort to avoid that, unless, like, these goblins, we're taking the goblin strategy here. Unless there's overwhelming force, it's not a thing for us, right? So we are not, saying, oh yeah, we're aligned with the bad guys now. We've already told them that we have sway with the goblins, and we're going to try to get, we're going to try to get the pyramid back open. These are completely separate things. Even if we
bring an army of them to the Windark and Codswallop, that's an act of aggression, whether we fight or not.
Not against the broken head. Not against the broken head.
If the broken head is involved in the Windark Codswallop thing, they are tacitly an alliance, and we are bringing soldiers to the field against that alliance.
Here's the thing: like, why don't we just make an agreement that if there's like a contingent of Windark cohort with Codswallop, right? Too large for us to handle with 20 goblins or whatever, that we just back off. I mean, I'm okay saying, I personally am not okay with saying goodbye to 80,000 gold. But to your point, like, if the goblins and the Windark cohort get into a battle, it's bad news for us, right?
Yes.
If it's Codswallop and Roger's rapier is standing there because they haven't been seen for a couple of days, then I kind of feel like, you know what? Game on. Number one, we can negotiate with Roger's rapiers. It doesn't have to come to blows. We could show up and be like, look, guys, we're all adventurers here. He's a goddamn thief. That's our stash. We're going to pay you out, and there will have to be no bloodshed.
Yeah.
Roger's rapiers will be like, you know what? $5,000? I would, whatever we come up with, I would be okay with that. And then we're like, okay, but you have to leave us Codswallop. And they're going to be like, oh, okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, also, the scenario that plays out. But 100% agree with you, David. If we get into a hot war with Windark cohort, whether we win or lose, we lose. That's kind of the thing, right? So
I agree. There's no intent to do that.
But even with the Five Fingers, these are like high leveled adventurers who are with Codswallop, right? We show up. And Codswallop said, there's 80 grand in the stash. I saw it. And we go, can we convince you to side with us instead of Codswallop? And it's 3 level 1s and Avaricios. And they're going to go goblins off, right? Like,
and 20 goblins.
And 20 goblins.
Well, that's the whole point, though. Then we showed up with the goblins. And now they all know we're on the goblins. So that's what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter if Roger's rapiers
It doesn't matter.
know that.
I'll leave it alone. It's fine.
It doesn't matter if Roger's rapiers know that, because also we can get Roger's rapiers access into the pyramid if they want it. Here, guys, get this pin. Put it on. You're now.
I guess what I'm getting. Yes, I guess what I'm getting confused, or where we're disagreeing, really comes down to how we view the factions and their influence and our relationship with them, and the necessity for us to commit to one this late in the campaign. And how our safe haven, whether it be via the Kronos broken head scenario or the goblins, is predicated long-term on us making allegiances. And I worry if we continue to treat these factions as contingent allegiances, right? As partial allegiances, where we're trying to kind of hedge our bets with all of them at once, like you said, not spark violence, then we are never going to find a position of leverage with those allegiances sufficient enough to actually be safe with any of them, right? Which is kind of my worry here, when the way that we're like approaching it is like, let's game them all against each other, but we have no leverage with any of them because this isn't even our original party. This is the whole thing. We have one of our original party and a bunch of newbies. We don't have any relationship with any of these people.
And speaking
we have
no
leverage with any of these people. There's nothing we can. Go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, that's it. That's it. That's what I'm saying.
I was going to say, like, related to that though, is a looming problem, exactly the same problem, a looming one that I've sort of been telegraphing, is you're going to have to make a decision with the Beastmen and the Goblins, right? I hope you guys have been picking up on that, but that's going to be a real conundrum for you guys.
I've been putting that one off though, just because we've had no actual interaction with the Beastmen, so we can't really suss out. No,
that's very true. Let's not put the cart before the horse, but just you should keep it in mind that there's benefits to siding with either one. But playing like the Clint Eastwood Man with No Name, walking into town and playing both sides, that you could do that, and if you could pull it off, oh my god, that would be fucking magnificent. But that is the hard road.
and not just that. We the reason I brought up our decision to abandon the Broken Head earlier during the session was we still, whether it's actually an issue anymore or not, we still never resolved the Garrelad problem.
No, we haven't.
So that's another faction with another army that we have treated as something to deal with later. So now we got the Beastmen, we got the Goblins, we got the Broken Head, we got Garrelad. There's so many actors now who have like conditional relationships with us that we have no power with, and we're adding more as we go instead of resolving any of them. And that's why I'm getting frustrated in the session. I'm like, we got to decide on something, right? Like,
David, I don't know if like a final resolution is actually in the cards for any of these, because think about it. Like, we resolved Plumthorn's gang, and it just spun into like a whole nother like tangled web for us, right?
This is why John's trying to get us to go talk to the Goblin King. This is straight up. This is why he's pushing us to make a decision and actually engage with the faction in earnest, and not sort of like edge around it.
Well, this is gonna be a quick thing to. It's gonna be quick and easy, but it's gonna be a direct, quick thing to do, right? Like, we're gonna go out there and we're gonna see either there's an opportunity for us to get this money, or we're gonna decide that it's too dangerous, right? Yeah. If we decide that it's too dangerous, like, I've got two new guys. Avaricios loves money. He loves living more than money. Right? Like, even with this money, like, he's good. He does not want to die.
It's a good idea to keep in mind too, that that it's not like I know you want the money, but you have no claim on it unless you believe in finders keepers, right? Like, this is not something that is yours and is being taken from you. Now, of course, everyone wants it, but you're just like
more ours than Codswallops.
No, Codswallop is bad. I'm not saying Codswallop is a good guy. I'm just saying that you guys cannot make any sort of play that involves like, this is ours and you're taking it from us. Right. Exactly. The only person you can really say that against is Codswallop, right? I would I want to pull back a little bit too, to sort of like the game level of this as well, is that I don't think it's and this is just my personal opinion, that it's worth getting hot-blooded about in any sort of serious way, because the only real fail state would be a TPK, and even that's not really a fail state with D&D. Exactly. So we should just kind of keep in mind when we kind of get our temperatures up a little bit that regardless of any sort of fallout or repercussions or what choices you make, it'll always be fun. Right, it's just more trouble and more stuff that you're going to get into, and everything sort of shifts and everything that you kind of have to adjust. But that's what we've been doing for 54 sessions now. So it might just be a good idea to just sort of kind of look at it from a game level and realize that it's all good. In the end, just try to survive.
Imagine if the five of us found in real life $80,000.
Oh yeah, it'd be like that movie A Simple Plan, right? It'd be like that Bill Paxton movie, right? Is it Bill Paxton? Yeah. Bill Paxton, yeah. Anyways,
I was picturing the one with Mel Gibson where he wanted his like $230,000 or whatever, and he was like,
payback or whatever. Yeah.
Anyway,
I think we're more in a sorcerer, like scenario where we have just a truck full of C4 that we're trying to take through the jungle.
And I'm not trying to invalidate any of your arguments, because believe me, I love that you guys are the kind of players that really get heated, you really care about these sort of things and you want to work it out, because believe me, as we all know, there are not a lot of players that are like that. So I appreciate you guys, and it's awesome, but I think
sometimes it's probably for the best that we're hundreds of miles away from each other.
Well, and also we would have this quibble without a camera on us, and we'd be like, okay, that got a little heated, and now we have a camera on us and we look like assholes. So
but hey, and people out there, this is what we're like. This is like a genuine conversation and a heated debate that we have. But I would probably also in real life actually kind of be like, guys, like, it's just a game. It's going to be fun no matter what.
Have another beer. Shut up, Mike. Have another beer.
Yeah.
And I mean, for my part, I feel nothing but love and support for all these guys.
Of course. Yeah.
I hope I didn't sound like I was mad. Like we disagree all the time, but that's the fun of this game, right? It's arguing over fake money, invisible goblins, pretend inns, and dragons that don't exist with your best friends.
Well, both in the session and this detox, I basically took a back seat a lot of the times, because you guys are working all this stuff out on your own. And I take particular pride in presenting you with this conundrum that you guys have had endless debates over.
Yeah, and you did screw everything up by having Estelle go do this thing. Our plan was tidy and clean, and then you're going,
so we should all be
walking down there with some deer.
Maybe we should all be yelling at John instead. Is that
a ref prep insight? A ref prep insight is that I don't. I didn't do that where I read like your plan. It was like, well, this will screw him up. I never do that. I even before the plan, I was like, what would be the most, I just extrapolate like, this is what they want. This is likely what they would do, right? Based upon all the factors at play, including your own presence, right? What was really cool is that I have, and it's actually on the calendar that's available to everyone to see, but it's a hidden thing that only I can see, is I've had notes for like many, many weeks now, like way back, of what the timeline was on the surface level if you guys did not return to the surface level. Yeah. This group returned to the surface level surprisingly, right? I did not expect that to occur. And it just happened to be. Like, I'm literally going by the timeline that I set months and months ago. And you guys dropped in right when that was about to basically execute, right? So it was actually really cool because it was like, oh, they actually do have a chance to interfere with COD's plan. Because it was basically all going to happen. And you guys were going to come back like naturally out of the dungeon normally to find that everything was gone, right? And I'm not going to project like what would have happened, but now you have this chance to interfere, and it's actually been really, really cool because I not only have to go with the plan that was initially planned by these guys, but also you guys are the wrench in the plans. Your appearance has now changed everything that they want, how they approach things now, right? Knowing that the original claimants to this are now in the mix has caused them to sort of switch around what they plan to do. So just saying that I'm still being very reactive to what you guys are doing. I'm not deliberately inserting wrenches into the spokes, you know what I mean? So
nor did any of us think that. I think we all trust you well enough to know that's not the case.
Cool. Yeah.
I can't tell you how bitter I am that the invisible assassin is not with this fucking group.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Like, I'm just like I'm stuck with like Brother Lothar is a fantastic character and I love him to death, and he is absolutely the wrong man for this job. If I had the invisible assassin, I would just be like, let's go.
He's literally he's literally only a couple hundred yards away.
So guys, this question has been on my head, and this is a question to my friends here. If you could magically like swap players, right? Lift someone out of A, like Mike, you just said it, right? Like you would want to swap Lothar with Darius. What other changes would you make to have this be ideal? Right? Like to put the best possible team in the best possible place.
You probably want Mort. You probably want Mort.
Yeah, Mort would be up here. I don't think Avaricios should be up here. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's his. I'm glad he is. Whatever, but I don't think this is the best place for Avaricios. Avaricios probably. I'd want either on like. Nobody wants to be on Team C.
Yeah, I think they're maybe.
Team C's screwed, man.
No one volunteered Team C.
Probably Team A, right? Like for Av, But yeah, definitely Mort up here on Team B would be good for that. Parlay with the goblins are looking for him. And I'm just curious, do you guys have any?
I think it's hard to say because the only way we have to parlay with the goblins is with the original group. Yeah. So if Avaricios weren't up here, we wouldn't be even attempting this.
Right.
Well, Mort.
Ideally, what I would really love to have is Onweir and Gorand in.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm running all level 1s, so none of them are useful in any scenario.
Yeah. Any character that's higher level 1 is who you want up here right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're all equally useful and equally unuseful in the sense that what I will get out of them will be predicated on my quick thinking, not on the class they're playing or whatever.
All right,
right.
Well, gaming this right. Like if this group gets that, even a chunk of that 60K to the Broken Head or to the Pyramid or wherever, you guys are going to make out like bandits. Like, because we'll get the XP, not those other chumps on team A and C.
Which is a big incentive. That gold for XP is dangerous, baby.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's really dangerous.
Big time. Yep.
Like you're treasurer of Sierra Madreing yourselves.
Oh yeah.